Right, Matthew, come on over. Here's a microphone. It's good to see you. Please have a seat. So Matthew is a veteran, has also served at the State Department, as I understand, and yet also has asked some serious questions and has spent time with Veterans for Peace in places listening to folks like Basir, and so I wanted to begin just by, I know you've been in Palestine and other places with Veterans for Peace delegations. From your own experience, when you hear someone like Basir, what's your response? What's happening inside of you as you listen to him?
And thank you for having me here, and thank you all for the music. Actually, real quick, one of the things is I've done these delegations and been with these resistance movements, whether they've been in Palestine or Okinawa, or at Standing Rock, or say it's Charlottesville, or here, is the use of music, and how that brings us together and goes past the material, goes past the worldly, and goes past that which drives the violence. And that's what unites us all. And it's something that the other side, the people with the rifles and the money, don't have. But when I hear Basir, and I actually know Basir through a friend of mine I've worked with and spoken with the Afghan peace volunteers, honestly, I'm heartbroken because the last conversation I had with them, and this is a collection of young people, teenagers and people in their early 20s, who every time up until this past summer had always been so enthusiastic and so hopeful. And this past summer, their hope was gone. Because what they were seeing was another escalation of the war in Afghanistan, a doubling of American airstrikes. And with that, because violence begets violence, and that's as true here as it is there, the car bombs have increased. The suicide bombers have increased. As well as, there's about 35 Afghan soldiers and policemen killed every day in combat in Afghanistan. Every year, there's a record number of Afghan civilians killed, and that's been true since we started counting that. We didn't count that, though, until 2008 or 2009. For the first 7 or 8 years in Afghanistan, we didn't keep track of how many civilians were killed because we didn't care. But that's where it goes to. But when I hear him say things like, we must change our Constitution, this is a man who knows exactly what has to happen, and the onus is on us because we're the ones who are bringing this violence to them.
You sound to me to be a person of great conviction, and I know it's Veterans Day this week, and there's lots of talk in our country right now about what it means to honor veterans and to respect our country and respect our flag. But you've really grappled with some of this stuff personally, and I wonder if you'd just share with us a bit of your own journey about what in your own service to the country and what you saw happening from the various places where you were serving that made you realize, I got to do something else.
It was taking part in the killing over and over again. I went to Iraq twice and Afghanistan once, and then that third time to Afghanistan, that was where I could no longer go along with the killing, where I could no longer go along with the lies, where I could no longer come home and go to another funeral and tell a mother that her son's death was worth it. And the lies over and over again, the rationalizations, or the careerism you saw. When I was in Afghanistan with the State Department, my next thing was going to go to Harvard or to Princeton so that I could then go back into the federal government and be an SES and they're, a senior executive service. That's the type of thinking you have, and we excuse the deaths, we excuse the violence. One of the things that I've come to realize is that what our state religion is a state religion of militarism. Just on the train the other day, there was a midshipman, a Naval Academy midshipman on the train, and this kid, he's probably 19 because he was a sophomore at the Naval Academy, because you can tell by their name tags. It says, or name tag, it says, Morris 20 or whatever his name was. And a lady came up to him and said, "I'm so sorry, I forgot to thank you for your service." Now this woman could have been like a pediatric oncologist who was saving children every day from cancer, but she was apologizing to him because she had forgotten to partake in the ritual of thanking the military for their service.
And what you see and what you do and what you experience is this hero worship, where we are basically these acolytes of this religion. And so we are untouchable. And so anything I do, I am thanked for. When the realities of my service, if you want to call it that, which you can't call it that, because the realities of it, the sum and total of it, is the death, is the killing I took part in both places, whether directly or indirectly. And that has affected me when I came home for my second time in Iraq. The moral crisis I had, the moral injury, the term that's used now, the guilt, which is what I believe drives most of the suicides that we see in the veterans community, is the guilt. And we know this from studies. We know this, the VA has done plenty of studies on this. They knew this as early as 1990, that the best predictor of suicide in Vietnam veterans was combat-related guilt. And this has been affirmed over and over and over again in studies both in the U.S. and internationally as well. But for what happens to me, though, is this, when you lose that, when you lose who you think you are, because you've taken part in something that was so wrong, this killing, it rips the moral foundations out of you. It rips your moral spine away. And so the descent goes quickly to suicidality. And that's something I've been dealing with for 10 years now, and I manage it and I cope with it, but it still comes back. It's a condition I'll have for the rest of my life. But this is the cost of taking part in the killing. And we see this as well, too. It's no coincidence, and it comes from this culture in this country of violence-based solutions, of militarism. It's no coincidence that we've killed 1 million to 1.5 million people in these wars since 2001. And we have the highest murder rate in the world, right? It's no coincidence that we have the highest incarceration rate. Or when you see things like...
We have this phenomenon of mass shootings, which doesn't exist in other places.
Absolutely. Or not taking care of our people. It's no coincidence that the day Trump announces the largest weapons deal to Saudi Arabia, $300 billion, is the same day that his people in the White House say, we're going to cut Medicaid and food stamps by $700 billion. No coincidence. And so it's these kinds of things. But as a person, on an individual level, the experience you go through is hell. It's an emotional destruction that I can't begin to explain. And it's why so many guys put pistols in their mouths to end it.
I'm a Baptist preacher, and I've spent my whole life listening to conversion stories. We talk about how folk got born again. You strike me as someone who's had a conversion experience. I mean, you were talking about a kind of civil religion that you don't believe in anymore. And I wonder, as you're turned away from that, we're talking in this Poor People's Campaign about the need for a moral revival. You're talking about this kind of moral center that's missing in our society. What are you turning towards? What kind of draws you and gives you hope as you think about where we're headed?
It's what I see sitting here in front of me, all you people. It's the work I've been fortunate to do through various organizations, whether with Veterans for Peace or with Code Pink or Iraq Veterans Against the War. But taking part in something I didn't know existed anymore, my soul, and the utility of love, and understanding what moves this world and the camps that move the world, in which we have a choice to be in. We can either be in the camp of violence, the camp of money, or we can be in the camp of one another and love. And there's never been a time where it's been more real, the consequences. We're either going to die slowly from climate change, or we're going to die wicked quick from nuclear weapons. Does anyone know what percentage of nuclear weapons we need to detonate in order to have a Holocaust? Yeah, it's like not even 0.3%. Would kill off a couple billion people. And this is what we have. And so the choices we have, this is not academic. This is not just some dude who went to war, came back crazy, and is now like this pot-smoking, love for all kind of guy. No, this is a very real choice.
You don't strike me as that at all.
This is a very real choice, So we have this, and we have to be cognizant of it. One thing, too, If you notice that the poppy I'm wearing, the white poppy, this goes to Armistice Day. We try not to use the term Veterans Day because it was originally Armistice Day. And the white poppy symbolizes all deaths in war. There's actually a purple one for animals as well. But, and this goes back to what the original intention of Armistice Day was before in the 1950s when they changed to Veterans Day, which was done because of the Red Scare and of the militarism and the nationalism and the McCarthyism that was going on. This was basically no more, never again. And that's what we must do, and we listen to men like Basir, and we see it, we're not following that.
Well, yeah. That's certainly a thank you from all of us. But let me also, since you've rediscovered your soul, let me just say, bless your soul. Because indeed, we need to rediscover our souls in the way that you have and give ourselves fully to exactly what you're calling for. So thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Bless you.
Thank you to all of you.